Hi everyone, and thanks for taking the time to listen in on another war story that was definitely one of my more, let's call it, challenging projects. It was quite intense. So today I'm flashing back to country expansion. More specifically, when I led the expansion of a food delivery giant to 12 countries in 12 weeks. So essentially, one country a week. The company in question was actually also a product of the 100-day launch process that I designed at Rocket Internet. Its launch into the German market was actually the final launch that I executed before leaving Rocket. Its expansion into different markets was in a lot of ways my farewell song. And no farewell song comes easy. So this was a time where I was working around the clock and devoting everything I had to the success of this project. It was a vicious landscape I was operating in because effectively the task at hand was a land grab competition. Moreover, it was during a time where food delivery seemed to be the trend to hitch your wagon on as a VC. So sharks were out, I was spread thin, and I had to make do with, honestly, what were not a lot of resources. So now if you're an early stage founder and are thinking to yourself that country expansion has no real relevance to day one operations, then I'd say that you're mistaken. I urge you to keep aboard, as the process of starting in another country is not so different than starting in your first country, actually. More than that, where the nuances come in is also where the takeaways for the first-time founders enter. So bear with me here as I take you through the steps of what we did to expand both rapidly and successfully. The first was to simply start from scratch. We looked at each country project as essentially its own venture. And this started with bringing in fresh perspectives in the form of local country managers. These managers were given full autonomy to build in bespoke fashion. However, we made sure to give them overarching guidance at each step of the way. To be honest, it's a fine line to walk. Centralization, decentralization. Each of our managers, whether it was the head of the Nordics, the head of Netherlands, Australian head, or whatever country, each head was given the same tools and processes. Guidelines like, this is what your target org chart should look like. These are the types of people you need to hire ASAP, riders, dispatchers, salespeople, etc. To hire these people and to hire them fast, implement the same framework that we found success with in the cities in Germany. Or as well, this is how much you're allowed to spend. And this is what you have to do to get your first city live, like prioritizing the best zones, getting a mix of the best restaurants for, burgers, pizza, sushi, vegetarian, etc., while employing our onboarding tool stack to decrease your dependencies. In a nutshell, we gave each country manager the framework to operate within that did not restrict them, but enabled them to succeed at the task at hand. A notion that should permeate all levels of any organization hoping to thrive. So that's the formula we took into this project, and here's what happened. Overall, we found a lot of success. Each launch worked, but it's the micro results where I really found my lessons learned. An interesting shift that occurred was my general standing with each of the country managers. At first, I was very well liked, given the benefit of the doubt. They knew me from the 100-day launch process. I advised them, I provided them with funding. I could have been Santa Claus for all they knew, right? But the honeymoon phase didn't last very long, actually. I soon began to cut under the philosophy I built all of my ventures, MVPs, teams, whatever it be with. Must-haves only. Must-haves only. That's the philosophy. If it was not essential, I cut it and didn't look back. At the beginning, we were quick to launch with the motto and still being to launch as quickly as possible, no matter the cost. The moment we crossed over the go live finish line, this model quickly shifted to how do we continuously cut costs? Not a fun game to play with those who brought those costs to life in the first place. Founders, leaders, and whoever ends up building something, whether it's a product, a team, or a process, tend to fall under a bias that leads them towards viewing that product, team, or process as absolutely essential. People unknowingly foster an attachment, and it only grows because they're just simply too deep in the trenches. Now, the ability to zoom out and to see the bigger picture is essential here. And it was my job with this expansion project to do exactly that for each country manager. Whether they loved me or hated me, it didn't matter. Because we had a goal to achieve. We, of course, had country managers that, city managers, that simply didn't work out. I remember one country manager allocating a year's budget up front towards office space because, in his words, that's how it's done in his country. I couldn't believe it. In a scenario like that, you have to be super scrappy in the early days. Co-working spaces, alternative venues, anything except a year's rent up front. On the other hand, we had countries that we had to simply put on pause until the other countries could provide the cushion for them. The labor laws in some of the Nordic countries that required 20 or 25 euros per hour, I don't remember, but some high number at that time, wage for writers just wasn't feasible at the time. But it began to work once the other countries were profitable. Now, despite the eventual success we found, it was definitely the toughest time window during my time at Rocket, for me personally. But because of that, it was also probably one of the reasons that led me to my current passion project in the 100 Tasks. It was really the project that solidified my belief in patterns, because I saw the value of a playbook and the ability to view a venture holistically. Whether it was launching a company, launching an entire portfolio, replicating a venture in new markets, the steps were pretty much always the same. Fundamental values like being relentlessly lean, having processes in place, and being operationally quick seem to carry over no matter what the context was. So while it was hard at the time, it really was, I look back on it fondly as a big factor towards building the 100 Tasks. So I hope you guys got a lot from that. It's always fun for me, retelling old battle stories and just learning from the insights all over again. So if you found the stories useful, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I have many more anecdotes to share and resources to give away. Thanks again for tuning in, and until the next time.